Welcome to Royal Cape Yacht Club TV, where real sailors come for their yachting fix, courtesy of Cape Town's Tavern of the Seas. Today, we are meeting up with Jessica Reynolds, who self-describes as an ocean nomad. Jess is a freelance head chef on super yachts, and we join her in Bali, where she is in lockdown in her hotel room. Links to her Instagram feed and ocean culture webpage are in the description below. Go and check them out for more information.
Right. How much history do you want?
as much as you think's important.
Well, I was born in Middleburg. No, just kidding. I was though, but I started yachting probably about 11, 12 years ago, and I got into it just through a mate, one of my best mates. She was down in Monaco doing the boat show, and she said, "Do you want to come down and polish brass from 7 in the morning till 8 in the morning?" I said, "Absolutely, that sounds brilliant." I was stuck in England at the time, so I wanted to do anything to get away. And yeah, I went down and was just polishing brass in the morning, and then had the rest of the day to just go and have a jolly. It was so much fun. I was like, what is this world that you live in? Because I got paid an absolute packet, and it was 7 days of just partying. It was so much fun, and captain's parties and all these ridiculous super yachts. And it turns out that to get a job on a super yacht, you've just got to have a bit of a personality. So they just want you to have fun and make people have fun on the boat. So I got a job the next week, and then I was flown out to New Zealand. And since then I've been, I was a stewardess to begin with, which I hated. It was awful. I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't like it. But the chef got fired one day for being drunk, surprisingly enough. And they said, "Who can cook?" And I think at the time I was cleaning a hallway of leather with a toothbrush and an earbud. And I wanted to ram the earbud in my eye and stick the toothbrush in my ear. I was like, "Get me out of here." And yeah, I started cooking, and I Googled everything. I just YouTubed stuff. They were like, "We want this for lunch, maybe a bit of that and this." And I just YouTubed the hell out of it and learned on the job. And that was on the Maltese Falcon, which was, how big was that? 300 feet. It was like 90 meters. And yeah.
So how many people were you cooking for on the Maltese Falcon?
I was cooking for 12 guests and 21 crew.
Oh my goodness. So you just walked into that and Googled your way through that?
I just winged it. I totally wung it, because I was like, anything to get me out of that laundry room, and making beds, and you know, I just wanted any excuse to leave. And yeah, I had a sous chef who was this little Indian guy who couldn't speak any English, because the boss, considering she owned the largest, at the time it was the largest private sailing yacht in the world, she was still tight as anything, and wouldn't hire a proper sous chef. So I had this little Indian guy, couldn't speak English, made a killer curry. But yeah, it was just ridiculous. And that boat, it was super fun to work on, but yeah, it was an absolute show, monkey show, Mickey Mouse show, as my dad would say. And then yeah, after that job, I could walk onto any boat that I wanted pretty much. And I went from like 90 meters, that was 90 meters, to another 90 meter one, sail yacht, to motorboats, like ranging from a really nice cat actually, which was 30 meters. That was just 8 guests and 4 crew. It was super easy, very cruisy. Yeah, it's been a good fun run, getting to go to all these cool places and just, yeah, get paid to do it. It was great.
And of the actual, whilst you're working, how often do you do ocean passages, or is it mostly, do you come on board when they're doing the actual coastal cruising?
No, I loved the crossings. Yeah, I've done, I think, a total of 10 crossings, but it was 7 Atlantic crossings, and it was great fun. Yeah, I loved it. The people assume that you have guests on for those, but we never did, thank God.
Right.
But I liked them as a chef, because everyone else would be on watches, you know, rotational watches, 4 on, 8 off. I can't remember my maths. And because I was a chef, I didn't have to do watches, so I'd just work a regular working day for like 3 weeks, 8 till 6.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was lovely. And then you're working out on deck and no one's drinking, of course. So you get to the end of it looking really fit and healthy, and then it all just goes downhill straight away.
And what is kind of a normal day on one of these super yachts for you? If you've got, you've got a bunch of famous people on board, run us through what is a normal day for you as the chef.
Also, if you're on charter, so let's say, for instance, with EOS, which is a beautiful big green bus of a sail yacht, like 5 sails, I can't remember. It looked like a sort of Titanic on the inside. It was so glamorous. The owner's wife was this designer, and she was absolutely bonkers. She would request the weirdest things at the weirdest hours. But aside from her, you would sort of, so it was me and another chef. So when it's on charter, you have 2 chefs, head chef and Sue. And you'd be making fresh bread, you'd be serving breakfast of fruit platters, and then anything they want to order, any eggs or anything they want. And then you'd start doing lunch, and after breakfast you'd prepare a menu for the boss and show him like 3 options for lunch. And he would, if he bothered to look at you, he sort of sometimes just poke. And thank you, sir, thank you so much. And then you head back into the galley and start making all the crew lunch, first of all, because they've just got the boys are just absolutely rammed with jet skis, or we had a couple of sailing boats on the boat itself, so the boss would go sailing on that little thing, because he didn't like sailing the big boat. So you prepare a massive lunch for those guys, which would be normally about 4 or 5 huge, great big platters of stuff. And if you had time in the morning, a fruit platter for them as well, but they could normally help themselves to breakfast. Lunch would be about 1 o'clock. That would go on for about 3 hours. It was always a buffet style lunch, and then desserts, which the girls would normally help themselves to. So about 6 stewardesses running around. So as soon as the guests leave their room to go for lunch, the girls are going in and prepping it all, fresh fruit plates in their rooms and stuff. And then they'd normally sleep in the afternoon, the guests would, because they'd all be so drunk from lunch. Okay, normal procedure. And there'd be an afternoon tea. You get a break probably around 4 o'clock for a half an hour to an hour. Whether you decide to sleep, work out, or go for a swim, depends on how much you've been run ragged in the morning. And then you've prepped a whole load of stuff in the morning for dinner as well. And after lunch, of course, you take another menu to the boss and say, what do you want for dinner? Again, 3 options, normally like a dark meat, a light meat, a fish, and then all the sides and stuff. And about 7 o'clock, you start serving canapes. 8 o'clock, they'd sit down and they'd finished eating by about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And these guys were old fuddy-duddies, so they were in bed by 10:30.
Okay. So what time do you start? I mean, I presume you're up early to make bread.
Start about 5 o'clock. So you've got all the bread rising and all ready, all the dough's ready to go in the morning. So that doesn't take too long, unless, you put the cookie dough, the muffin dough, all that stuff in the fridge ready to go. So you're making fresh muffins, fresh bread. I would actually cheat and get a big bag of frozen croissants, really good quality ones though. So you set them out at night, they rise, they bake really well. They're also really good for crossings as well, because that's my guilty pleasure. and any slight glimpse of seasickness, and I just scoff about 7 of them. They're miniature, so they can't be bad for you.
So you started at about 5 and you knock off at what time?
Started about 5, a break at about 3, and then working until about 11 o'clock. So you do a full wash down, rotate the fruit and veg in the stores and clean up, because you got to keep. The thing is, like, you can be on a charter for 6 weeks was the longest we did. No days off, and so you've got to keep everything immaculate. You've got to keep everything super clean and tidy, because you're getting inspected all the time. So
that's 7 days. You're on 24, well, literally 7 days a week. Okay. Sounds quite tough, because
I really like the people you're working with.
You got to like your crew, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, they're a good crew. Yeah, so there's 21 people, and you all really got to get on well. And if you don't, you're out pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay. And I was gonna ask you what your go-to comfort food on a cruise, but
Okay.
clearly, well,
Croissants.
shoot away. Apart from the croissants,
100%. So my personal one is croissants, but I'd also make, you can pre-make cookie dough. So I'd make like 3 or 4 different batches of cookie dough, and then you roll them out in cling film and then stick it in the freezer. And then whenever you want to make cookies, you just bash it out and just quickly lop off a few and bake them. That's like the prepping for your crossing is the best thing. Like I would take easily a good, if I had the option, about 3 weeks to prepare for a crossing. You're making cookie dough, you're making breads, you put them in the freezer, you're doing meals for the crossing in case there's bad weather days, like lasagnas, cottage pies, just anything, any way you can cheat one day. But actually when people get seasick, they don't tend to eat anything because everyone's too busy trying to keep any food they've got down.
right?
So we were crossing from the Maldives to Barcelona once for 3 days of just non-stop hammering on the nose, and we were properly climbing up these waves and then smashing down the other side. It was awesome, but I was the only one who wasn't sick, and the captain was rotating with the first officer, and no one was eating a thing. So I was like, I had 3 days off pretty much, just sat in the bridge eating croissants and ginger biscuits. Ginger that will help you. Yeah.
And name some of the amazing boats that you've worked on.
I think I already have. Those are the only ones. Well, there's so the Maltese Falcon was the big one, which looks like a pirate ship, a modern day pirate ship.
Yeah.
There's the 3-masted. I mean, you can't really say you're a sailor on that boat because everything was mechanical. Press a button, the sails come out. And EOS was also 90 meters, but with the bowsprit actually 92. So they claim to be the biggest. And then what else was there? There was one called Garçon, which was a sea axe, which was a complete toy boat, which was super cool. We had a decompression chamber on the back. We had a submarine. We had a helipad on the back as well, on the top, and all the toys that you could possibly imagine. We actually had a whole house that there was like a flat pack house that we would chuck onto a tender, drive it up onto any beach. The front of the tender folds out, and then the house just gets put up by the crew. I never saw it happen. I just saw it going, and suddenly there's this house on a beach. So the boss
That's ridiculous.
Say, I want a house there, and then they go and build this house, and I'd take all the food over, and we'd have a barbecue on the beach, and it was ridiculous. I mean, these guys have more money than sense. It was absolutely insane. Yeah, that was probably the most fun one because it would literally cut through the big waves, and it was a sea axe.
And did you ever get to go in any of the submarines?
No, I didn't want to. I was afraid. I wasn't that keen because I've seen too many James Bond films, and bad stuff happens to people in submarines. So I wasn't keen. But I did get to go on the chopper. We were doing a practice run. I can't remember where we were, but they were practicing taking off whilst we were sailing, and then landing. So they were like, "Who wants to go up next?" And I did. So that was cool. Yeah, that was really fun. And then also because of the extra equipment that you've got, like the helicopters and the cranes and all this stuff, there's a lot more of a fire risk and accident risk. So you'll get trained in that kind of stuff. So that's cool. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So name a couple of highlights. What have been your absolute highlights?
I would say my absolute highlights have been the crossings. They're just great. You see dolphins and whales and sunsets and sunrises every day, just completely different. It's never two the same, are there, Peter?
That's for sure.
And racing, I'd loved racing, and we did the St. Bart's Bucket, did the Heineken Cup. I also did a little stint of filming them as well, which was just epic fun. These are huge, Perinis, massive stars. So the races were wicked fun, and the just the vibe of when you're racing, and in all these posh places, I can't remember any of them now. Posh places in France, just the food. And I get to go, most of the girls just stay inside. They have to do the cabins, clean up after the guests, and they don't really see daylight. Whereas whenever we go to somewhere nice and new, I could get to go on shore, pop to the supermarket and see it for, you know, even if it was only for a morning or whatever, it was still super cool.
Yeah.
I wish I spoke more languages. I should speak more languages, but I don't. Those were the highlights for sure. It was never meeting any of the celebrities. They just, I couldn't care less about them. And it's definitely not been any incentive for me to make money, because some of these rich people were properly miserable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're like, how can you be so grumpy? You've been here for 6 weeks and it's heaven.
Yeah.
So Tahiti was a great spot. Tahiti was just insanely beautiful.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, stunning.
And Lowlights?
I'd say the lowlights have got to be death on boats, the accidents that happen. Yeah. There's a lot of accidents that go on, and you just have to just carry on. Like, there's, even when it wasn't on the boat, like if someone died of on their holiday or on their rotation, they don't really give you, it's part of the family. You're all a family that lives together,
right?
And they just expect you to crack on, which you do, and I suppose you do in any job. But I suppose the health and safety, that's the only low point, is that there'd be stuff that just shouldn't have happened, stuff that shouldn't have gone wrong. Or just sometimes it was the crew's fault. You know, there's a few times in the Caribbean where the crew would get drunk and forget the code, try and jump in, fall over, knock their head and drown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was all really, that was probably the worst part. And there's a lot of drinking on sailboats and stuff, so, which we all do, but it's just the young guys when they come in and they just get too excited. You've got loads of money, no worries really. You know, you're living on the boat, you don't have any expenses.
Yeah.
And they just go crazy, get a bit too excited.
So I've got a question for you, having cruised a bit on my very small catamaran, where space is an option. Where space is always, you always have to consider space, and on those big boats, I guess you've got enough freezers and fridges and packing space is never really an issue. But fresh produce on a passage, on a remote or long cruise. Do you have any tips or tricks for that?
When it comes to, also to keep the crew happy, you always try and have as much salad and stuff. So that's the hardest stuff to keep fresh, or your leafy greens and stuff like that. So you just got to, I hate using too much plastic, but sometimes that's the only thing that will keep your greens as green as they can be. So we, luckily on the bigger yachts, we had 3 massive, great big walk-in storerooms. So we could stack these plastic containers of lettuce and stuff. But if we didn't, I did smaller yachts and stuff. So you just take them out, you wrap them in paper towel, douse the paper towel a little bit with water, and then wrap it again in cling film, and then put them upright in like an old ice cream tub or something in the fridge. Right. And you just keep checking on it every day, changing the water, rewrapping them, snipping the dead bits off, like it's alive. And then towards the end of the trip, people could normally tell when it was the scraps of the food, because I do a lot of coleslaw, so cabbage goes down really well. Do a lot of purple and carrot coleslaws. That always goes down well, and they never seem to notice.
Okay. And then we did speak earlier about your go-to for seasickness. So, but any other tips or tricks for food? I know on our boat, ginger tea is always a good one.
Yeah, ginger tea for sure. Anything with ginger in it. Ginger biscuits, ginger tea, make ginger cake. That always goes down well. But I think people just want stodge, any home, like we had a lot of British engineers on the boats. They just love their meat and 2 veg. But no mashed potato and a steak night with just some greens always goes down a storm. Unless
the other interesting thing is, I find if someone comes to me and says they're feeling a little queasy, a red apple. It seems to settle the stomach. Yeah, you give them a red apple and you wait about 20 minutes and then follow that up with a rusk or something. I generally find that an empty stomach makes it worse. If your stomach's kind of working,
People don't realize how much they're working, and you could literally do nothing all day apart from walk from one room to the other, but your body's really working hard. And especially if you're working out, and everyone was working out on the boats, they're eating more and more. So it's like constantly having snacks available, having cookies or making cakes, or even doing a fry up, any kind of treat that I could do for the crew, because, you know, they were knackered. They were absolutely toasted, and we'd get like 2 weeks in and you can see them starting to lag. Some people lag at that stage, or some people really get into it. But yeah, surprising them with like an afternoon tea cake, or suddenly a cooked breakfast, taking a bacon sarnie up to the captain at sunrise after he's been up for 2 hours, never went down badly. Yeah, just keeping everyone fully stocked, definitely. It's just,
fantastic.
If people are hungry as well, they're just going to be miserable.
Good.
And doing fun stuff, like we did because you can't drink, we were doing alcohol-free pub quiz night, which was hilarious. And movie nights and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's good fun. The games, like murder mystery games and stuff like that.
Well, Jess, thank you so much. We need to wrap up now. We're running out of time. That's amazing.
All right.
It sounds like you have a fantastic time on those boats, and clearly you have your own private photographer, because looking at your Instagram page, man, there's someone following you around with a camera 24/7.
Oh no, that's the highlight, the surfing. I get to go to these wicked surf spots.
Exactly,
which is way above all the other highlights, is that. Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jess. We'll be sure to look out for you in the surf. Links to Jess's Instagram and webpage is in the description below. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you want to see more of this. Otherwise, have a great sailing day.